And now off to our presentation. I'd like to welcome back our longtime partner and presenter who will be kicking off our child development training series for this year, Shawn Bryant. Shawn Bryant is an independent scholar, director of Yes To ECE Professional Development Consultancy. He's the director of Adult Learning Experience, Social Impact and Evaluation at the Child Lab, Yale University Child Study Center, and professional development specialist in residence at Horizon Community School. He is the author of Trauma Informed Practices for Early Childhood Educators, a contributing author of Trauma Informed Family Engagement. He is the creator of the Teacher Self-Reflection Tool and Trauma Responsive Coaching and Mental Health Consultation at the Child Lab. His professional development has reached over 100,000 early childhood educators, and he splits his time between Philadelphia and Oakland. He loves music and takes middle of the day naps. Please join me in welcoming Shawn Bryant. So excited to have you back, Shawn, and kick off these series. I'll now be handing it over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Leah, and welcome everyone. The 41 of us that are here. There are probably more people, because Leah, I think you said there were over like 150 people that registered. So more people will probably be joining us as we move forward, but we're not going to wait for them. I see some familiar names. I see Sochi down in Southern California. Hey, Sochi, good to see you. I see Norma down there in South Bay in California. And I see Kavita. Hi, Kavita. I haven't seen Kavita in so long. Just good to see some familiar names and folk who are on this early childhood journey with us. So I'll share my screen and we will jump right in. All right, here we go. All right. So this short learning experience that we have together is packed with information, some activities for you all to take back to the work you do with adults who care for and educate young children. Those are their caregivers, their parents, their teachers, their families, and for some of us, it is us. So Catherine named this session the Screen Smarts Caregiver, Fostering Healthy Digital Boundaries. So we thank Catherine for her input in helping us to name today's PD session. I'm Shawn Bryant. I'm your facilitator on this learning journey. I won't go into what's on the screen. I just like to tell people that education is my medicine and Black psychology is the prescription I use in the work that I do. I'm the firstborn child of James and Denise, who everyone called Mike and Nisi. I'm the uncle to 5 growing young men, ages 18 to 23. I'm the godfather of the 3 children here in Philadelphia, 3 children in Oakland who are 10, 12, and 14, and the godfather to 4 children here in Philadelphia, where I'm standing right now, who are actually my cousins also. And all of those children play a big, big part in my life and what I do and spending my money. As Catherine said, I have a few roles. I'm the director and principal consultant for Yes To ECE Consultancy. I'm also the director of training, social impact, and evaluation at Yale University's Child Lab. You'll hear about that soon. And I'm the PD specialist in residence at Horizon Community School, located in Marin City, California. At Yale, this is what we do. We train mostly coaches and mental health consultants and specialists and teachers on these dimensions. There are 9 dimensions that we find tell us how we welcome children or how we don't welcome children that leads to things like suspension or expulsion or burnout. Many of you know that for a year, I took on the task of going back into a Philadelphia pre-K program, and I was a teacher from August 2023 until August 2024. I had 21 young learners, 5 little girls. That means I had 16 little boys. I had 8 children who were diagnosed with autism, 3 that were undiagnosed, and according to myself, I had 2 that were misdiagnosed. 8 were in pull-ups, 4 showed up on day 1 with one-to-one ABA supports, and my supporting teacher was a first-year teacher. So y'all know I drank a lot of red wine that year, in addition to my other jobs and responsibilities. You're welcome to see me on places like social media. I am there. I won't spend a lot of time because you have it in the slide deck. For those of you who know, I'm the contributing author to Trauma Responsive Family Engagement and the author of the 2nd edition of Trauma Informed Practices for Early Childhood Educators. I went along and just created our facilitator agreements for you all. This is going to be interactive. I'm going to be presenting information, but we want your feedback and your participation. We want you to bring your experience and wisdom to the chat, and we allow you to unmute here. But we want you to think about your role and responsibility in supporting young children and their families along the way, and open to new ways of thinking about AI, technologies, digital media, particularly screens and screen times in young children, as a focus on what are you taking back and taking away to your work. As Catherine said, this is a child development series. We're doing one a month. Next month, we're focusing in on attachment on September 16th. So we're going to be focusing in on attachment, but how family traditions and community norms influence attachment styles, the differences between individualistic and collective approaches to relationships, and some practical tools to build deeper, culturally aware connections as it pertains to attachment. Then in October, on October the 7th, we're leaning in on neurodivergence. We're going to talk about the basics of neurodiversity, understanding everything that happens in young children's brains that work differently. We'll touch on, but not go deep into autism, a little bit of ADHD and sensory processing. We're going to focus in on how to spot early signs in young children, particularly ages 8 and under. And of course, some everyday strategies to help us support positive behavior and communication. And then we're going to end that session with a little bit of Q&A, right, around some specific questions. You'll all put me on the hot seat. And then in November, we're finalizing this 4-series session with child development activities, where we're going to focus in on what we see as simple but profound daily activities that boost brain growth and development, right? Fun ways for adults and children that support things when we think of whole child development: speech, motor skills, and social learning. Some of the big 3 that kindergarten teachers are saying across our country that young children show up with in terms of skill needs, right? And then some tips to turn everyday kind of at home and in community routines into playful learning experiences. So we look forward for you. Save those dates to spend 2 hours of learning with us in the coming months. All right. I did it, Catherine. I talked about the series. So our overview for today is to analyze what we see as the benefits developmentally in terms of the benefits and the risks of screen exposure for children ages 8 and under. Even though this is First 5 Alameda, we're using the number 8 for 2 primary reasons. Number one, the early childhood years are really from conception until age 8. And it's age 8 because that's typically when most, not all, when most children's brains take a shift around moral development. It's usually around age 8 when most children can say, there's no Santa Claus. That was you that gave me those gifts. When most children say, Abuelita, there was no, tooth fairy. You put that $5 under my pillow. For most children, as for some children, it's age 7 or even 6. For some children, it might be 9. All right. So it's that moral development shift. And the second thing is, policy-wise in our country, we're moving towards a shift where you're going to see more and more agencies begin to kind of espouse and discuss age 8 and under. So the birth to 5 piece for many agencies is now we're understanding that K through grade 3 is still a significant part of the early learning years. So we aim to capture some of that here. The second piece is for us to apply after we get introduced to the screen aware framework to evaluate quality, both low and high quality, in terms of digital media, specifically things young children watch and view on screens. And then we want you to think about how you're going to communicate this to families that you partner with, or maybe it's caregivers that you partner with, without judgment or shame, because we don't want to create some ripple effects of trauma when we're engaging with them, but to communicate a plan. And some of that is in what we're going to cover today. So if you cut on your phone, your tablet, your computer, what you're going to find in the last 6 months is all types of articles about technology, AI, screen times, and young children, right? Where we're in this constant back and forth around what place should AI and technology have in our school systems, right? How much should we offer them, right? Are we putting screens in front of children when we're stressed as adults? Or the technology that young children have had that has actually harmed them, right? We know that there was technology that young children under the age of 6 were playing with, and one AI device taught the little boy how to start a fire. It asked him if he wanted to start a fire and told him the items he needed to start a fire. Another child was using technology, and a picture of a hat showed up. So it was a spelling game, and they were supposed to spell hat, H-A-T, but instead the technology kept spelling the word hate, H-A-T-E. And these things have happened a great deal with technology when we give it to children and we move away from them, right? So as folk who support adults who work with young children and families, part of us moving away from judgment is to move to this level of awareness around not just in the preschool and infant and toddler years, but what are we asking when they get to kindergarten and beyond? And knowing that many of the narratives are saying, yes, young children should have access to technology early and often. And I often say, dig a little deeper to see who authored this article, where's their stance. Many of the people who work in technology are saying, yes, I want my child to have technology in this country, but others in other countries, like the creators of TikTok, are on record saying, my children cannot have access to technology until they're in early adolescence, and then it's going to be really, really minimal. We know there's a direct correlation between screens and technology and a dip in terms of proficient fine motor skills in young children. We know that screen time has an impact on things like obesity in young children, having sedentary lifestyles and being inside more and not outside. And it definitely has an impact on young children's vision, myopia. And then if we think of older children, there's research that has confirmed adolescents who spend a lot of time isolated and online, it has a negative impact on not just them socially, but their individualized thinking. So wanting to frame where we're going with this by some of, not all of, the research and articles that exist. So before we jump in, you actually have in your arsenal many, many handouts that Leah is going to share with you. This first set of fact sheets and handouts is connected to Screen Aware. Leah just put the link in the chat for all of the handouts. The additional handouts come from 0 to 3 and some other places. While we won't take deep dives in these, we want you to know that there's a focus in the 0 to 3 handouts on children under age 3. And we're going to talk specifically around what the American Academy of Pediatrics says around screen times in young children under the age of 3. And then as I get to the other handouts, I'll focus in them on the screen. So let's jump in on this notion of screen awareness framework, the screen awareness framework. So the first thing I want to kind of anchor you all in is this notion of making a fundamental shift, right? How do we move from what used to be being screen free, which I think we failed at, to being screen aware, right? Particularly if we think of younger parents, typically parents who have children under the age of 6 are typically people who are under the age of 40, but not always. and how they moved into technology as being part and parcel of their lives from being young children, they involve themselves in it differently. So we've got to understand it not from our lived experiences, but from their lived experiences, and how what they're offering their children is fundamentally different, right? So we've got to think about it through this notion of, we know it's not going to be ever screen free, but how do we raise our awareness so that we're supporting families by asking more what important questions as we make this fundamental shift from what I like to call rigid rules and avoidance to how can we become intentionally and actively aware so that we're guiding people with the right information at the right time. So here's what we mean by that. Instead of simply banning devices, adults, parents, teachers, caregivers, we can become what one of the authors calls media mentors, whose job it is to evaluate digital content through a developmental lens so that we're modeling healthy habits, right? So that we're modeling healthy habits. This is a shift for most of us. So this shift to screen awareness moves away from simply using technology as a digital babysitter, right? To this notion of screen aware adults engage in serve and return interactions back and forth, like playing a ping pong game while using media together, right? So if an adult is using media with children, we typically are going to ask them open-ended questions about the storyline. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to go outside or stay inside, right? You could be reading a digital book or making up your own story, labeling objects and describing what's happening on the screen, or even connecting on-screen content to real-life activities, right? I have a little cousin who is pre-adolescent, and when she is having her tablet, she's always coloring faces, and uh, she's it's like she's coloring the face and doing the hair and stuff, but it's all digitally on the screen, and she always wants to talk to the person beside her. So this shift of screen free to screen aware, right? This shift from screen free to screen aware. So in your set of handouts, the authors of the text, even when we think about their fact sheets, one of the posters that they offer is this poster that tells parents no cell phones, right? And many of us, we've seen these things over I want to say the last probably 15 to 20 years, no cell phones, or cell phone free space. I laugh at those now because they're punitive and most people ignore them. So how do we move from no cell phones to this place of how do we raise our awareness around when can I be intentionally engaged? And when do I pull back as an adult who needs some balance for themselves? So as we move from screen free to screen aware to this place of being intentionally and explicitly helping young children develop social and emotional learning, Lisa Guernsey and her colleague wrote a book called Tap, Click, Read years ago, where they gave guidance on what adults can actually do around the what, the when, and the how to teach, right? They said the first C in their three C's are content. What is on the screen? Later, we're going to look at what's on the screen and how do we evaluate it effectively. Because what's on the screen, it actually matters. Then the context. I believe context is everything. How is it being used and with who, right? Or by whom? And the third C considers the individual child. Each child's temperament and needs are different, right? One child sees it and is engaged fully. The other child sees it and is completely confused. And they could be children who are the same age, in the same classroom, in the same community, or even in the same home. They could be twins. So the unique temperament and needs are the third C that Guernsey presents. in her text. And Tap Click Read actually has a website with a ton. I didn't give them to you in the handouts here because the focus wasn't on Tap Click Read. But if you Google Tap Click Read and go to their website, tons of wonderful resources and guidances there that Lisa presents as a proponent of technology. The authors of the Screen Aware Early Childhood took Lisa's 3 C's and kind of dug deeper with them, right? Around content, context, and the child. So they said the C's for digital decision making include connections, that amongst all things, children should be connected to other living, breathing adults, that giving them technology by themselves is hardly ever the answer or the most effective response. So they should be relevant adult human to human connections. This notion of calmness, when we think of sensory overload, the technology, the screens should help children connect to calm instead of wiring them up, being stimulated in negative ways. And then this notion of crowding out or crowding in. Does the media help them crowd out everything around them? Or does it become really noisy, stimulating, perplexing, and make it hard for them to focus? In their last C, considers communication. Remember that serve and return, that back and forth, which is really different than handing me a cell phone or a tablet and going to do something else as the adult, compared to the technology is used. I like to say one of the best ways to use technology is to think about reading a book to a 2-year-old. Most of us, if we're reading a book to a 2-year-old, that 2-year-old is in two places. They're on our lap or they're seated right beside us. So that level of intention and engagement sets us up for communication. Technology with young children should largely be used the same way and encourage that level of back and forth reciprocity between the adult and the child. So let's move to what I call a complementary roadmap for early childhood professionals who serve young children and their families. So this text that I'm pulling a lot of our content from today is a Screen Aware Early Childhood, a realistic approach in helping young children thrive in a digitally complex world. And the big piece within this that they created is what they call the Screen Aware Framework for Early Childhood, that I've heard them call Safe C. So they call it Safe C. Safe C. So the text actually has a foreword by Dr. Denisha Jones. So I'm going to take just a little bit of time to read to you her opening paragraph. Her opening paragraph. Dr. Jones says, one of the many things I'm grateful for is that I was born before the digital age. My generation was the last to spend hours outside engaged in free play, far from the watchful gaze or intervention of adults. Those years exploring in the woods with neighborhood kids aided my development in so many ways. I learned to trust myself, challenge my fears, stand up to bullies, protect younger kids, and negotiate time and space with others. When cell phones and internet technology finally arrived, I was a young adult with a solid childhood grounded in physical, free play in nature, which was an important protective factor. Though I was young enough to quickly learn how to use digital devices and embrace social media, they were not a part of my core development. They were not a part of my core development. She says, unfortunately, this does not apply to children today. They are born into a world dominated by technology, social media, and screens. So I read her opening paragraph, and it's a 2-page forward, based on this notion that we can I think, fall into of young children's lived experiences are so different than ours, and that they're negative or even, dare I say, bad. I understand where Dr. Jones's opening paragraph comes from. I like to think I want to be a lot more curious about technology and screens in young children, because the truth is, we really don't know the end results just yet. I call it with Dr. Ron Lally, who's an ancestor. I work with him at West Ed. He said that early childhood was really a grand experiment. We were still trying to figure it out, which I think was a great reminder that a lot of what we're doing, we're learning while we're engaged in it. So the more we can take a learner stance, which says, I don't know what the end is going to be, we can remain curious, knowing that we'll need changes while we're doing this. Let me give it to you another way. As we contend with screen times, and I'm not pushing screen time at all, so that's not what I want to get. But I think in this country, if you actually Google the history of when folks used to drive in cars and cars did not have seatbelts, they did not always exist. When we used to drive on the roads here and there was no yield sign or make a left ahead, those road signs did not always exist. Or when you used to get on the plane or be in a restaurant or a social place and everybody smoked cigarettes, or when pregnant women used to smoke cigarettes. We had to do something to educate ourselves as a populace to say these things are not just problematic, but they're actually harmful to us. We're still figuring that out around screens and technology with young children. We see some of the immediate impacts of it, but we're still figuring out the long-term impacts. And we need to do that, I think, as a large population of folks. So the authors of this text said what they've done with their roadmap is centered the framework in 4 categories, meaning the first one is child development. They consider child development as part and parcel of the screen aware framework. Of course, they bring research into it. What do we know that has proven to work? Where's the evidence? And what do we know that has proven to not yield impactful, strong results? Then they said notion of what they call protection oriented. They're simply using the protective factors. They brought in the protective factors because this is about children and families. What do we know about the protective factors that works, right? As an anchor to guide our work with families. And then the fourth consideration is this is all about relationships, that young children are not expected to do anything on their own by themselves, that even with screens and technology is not given to them, but doing with them as part of the learning. So when we think about this screen aware framework in screens and young children, there are some positives that exist. There's some positives that the research says exist if using screens with young children. The first one is what the research literature calls joint media engagement, right? Joint media engagement. So a good way to understand joint media engagement is using something like FaceTime or Zoom or Teams with a young child. Let's say grandmom's in, Florida, and we're up in Seattle, and we don't see grandmom as much, but grandmom understands how to use her tablet to call us during bedtime. Grandma gets a book, or we all have the same book from the library that's digital, and grandmom's reading the book. I hear her voice, I can see her face, but we actually are all looking at the book at the same time. And grandma reads me a story almost every night at bedtime as part of my bedtime routine. So I get to see Granny often. The joint media attention is I'm using the technology, but I see her, we see each other's faces, and we can talk about it. This level of joint media attention, the research says, has proven to remain positive because of what the adult's engagement with the child. The second one is what they call storytelling digitally, right? When we use tablets and things that we can kind of hold in our hand, And as we're seeing the media, we talk about it, right? So in children's classrooms and spaces, they can use it to document and talk about things, or in their homes the same way. I'm gonna give you an example. When I taught, we didn't have any media. There was no computer, no laptops, no tablets in my classroom, because my goal was for them to develop space and time with each other socially. However, we did have a what do I say? We did have a cell phone that wasn't it wasn't a phone. It was a cell phone that was old, that I could connect to the school's Wi-Fi, or disable it from the Wi-Fi. And guess what happened when I disabled it from the Wi-Fi? The children started taking pictures of each other. And when I saw that they were taking pictures of each other, I was able to take those photos and project them on the big, we had a TV screen in the room that we only used during nap time to play soft music. But then I had them sit and tell us what made them take that picture. So they were able to talk to each other and to the adults around the picture that they took. It helped them to focus, to slow down, and to notice. The same thing can happen in their homes with family histories. I have a bunch of digital screens here in my house that are downstairs. If you come into my home, most is just art on the wall. But in one room, there's three digital frames that are 15 inches that has a bunch of pictures on them. And what ends up happening is the younger members of the family say, who is this? What did this take this at? Is this so-and-so? So we end up in this back and forth engagement around using digital media to create social interaction. And this third one is around just how technology can make things accessible and available, right? Based on the child, and I would say the adult's needs, so that they can take in information in diverse ways. And we're still figuring this out around what are the potential other positives that are coming out of screen use. There are some negatives. There are some negatives. Screen time literally is replacing active free play engagement, which is what Dr. Jones was talking about, that she spent her years with other children out in time and space in nature. All of these things that we know are positive. We know that when human beings spend time in nature, we typically focus and we calm down, because time in nature, we usually are seeing three colors that are known to calm us: blue skies, green grass, and brown trees, right? And then we're oftentimes moving our bodies through time and space. So it's that active engagement with the world that replaces being still in a sedentary experience for young children. The other part is this notion of manipulation, investigating, and discovering through our senses when we're spending time and space with our peers, both younger and older, which is one of the things that Dr. Jones mentioned. The other one we see is this notion of overstimulation. We even see this with teens and adults, right? We see it because they're getting a dopamine drip. The people who can never put their phone down, or they sleep with their phone in the bed with them, their phone is never in a hand or arm's reach away. They're being overstimulated, so their brain pushes them into that space to always look for it. The end result, though, is we know that it diminishes our executive functioning skills, and it slows down our attention span from being able to attain more to much, much, much slower. And unfortunately, the research, not just for children, but adults, keeps reconfirming that the more we use technology, all of our attention spans are slowing down. Meaning, if you watch a 3-minute clip, it feels like you watched a 15-minute clip. If you watch a 10-minute clip, it feels like you watched 30 minutes of content. I see this all the time with teachers that I coach and consult with. If I record them and we watch a 2-minute clip, so much happens in that 2 minutes. They all say, this felt longer, because our attention spans are diminishing. And then this notion of sensory issues, right? Sensory issues. as a mental health consultant, when I was a mental health consultant in the city of Oakland, this notion of blue light and children who had sleep disruptions, and all of their families would say the same thing. He won't sleep or she won't sleep. It was usually the little boys. So we just give them the tablet or we give them the cell phone to just keep them quiet. Sometimes we just put him in the bed with us so that he doesn't roam around the house. So the intervention was take this thing to keep your brain awake instead of allowing your brain to actually shut off so that you fall asleep, which is not just a sensory issue, but health issues. When children don't fall asleep, or I should say when human beings don't fall asleep, we never fall into what we call REM or deep sleep, which is when our body says, now it's time to collect all the toxins that you've taken in throughout the day. Every opening or orifice in your body collects toxins throughout the day, which is why when most of us, I used to say all, but somebody will say, that doesn't happen to me, Shawn. For most human beings, when you sleep for a period of time, when you wake up, you have to do what? Use the bathroom. You have to pee or poop. For most children, the same thing happens. But if I deny my body that access, my body doesn't collect those toxins. I don't fall into deep sleep to repair, because that's what's happening when we sleep. So we see these children walking around almost like zombies during the daytime. The unfortunate part is I see them in early learning settings, and I can almost immediately start talking to the adult and say, what's his sleep like? And they'll say, oh, he doesn't sleep, Mr. Shawn. He doesn't sleep at all. Oftentimes due to what? Technology. So in your handouts, and then you're going to get in your handout the link to this short C-SPAN clip with Dr. Horvitz. There's a longer kind of testimonial that's over an hour long, but what Dr. Horvitz presents in his short clip to the Senate is the trouble of using devices with young children, and what we think we're going to gain, we're actually not gaining those pieces. A fundamental short clip that you can take into your learning to keep the learning going once we're not together. Actually, I forgot I loaded it, Catherine, because Catherine really liked this video. So I'm actually going to let you all listen to Dr. Horvitz, because I think I loaded it.
Thank you, guys. My name is Dr. Jared Cooney Horvath. I'm a former teacher turned cognitive neuroscientist who focuses on human learning. And I do not receive funding, nor have I ever, from big tech. So a sad fact our generation has to face is this. Our kids are less cognitively capable than we were at their age. Since we've been standardizing and measuring cognitive development since the late 1800s, every generation has outperformed their parents, and that's exactly what we want. We want sharper kids. And the reason for this largely has been school. Each generation spends more time in school. We use school to develop our cognition. Congratulations, you see your correlation. Until Gen Z. Gen Z is the first generation in modern history to underperform us on basically every cognitive measure we have, from basic attention, to memory, to literacy, to numeracy, to executive functioning, to even general IQ, even though they go to more school than we did. So why? What happened? What happened around 2010 that decoupled schooling from cognitive development? It can't be school. Schools basically look the same. It can't be biology. This hasn't had enough time to change. The answer appears to be the tools we are using within schools to drive that learning. Across 80 countries, as Jean was just saying, if you look at the data, once countries adopt digital technology widely in schools, performance goes down significantly, to the point where kids who use computers about 5 hours per day in school for learning purposes will score over 2/3 of a standard deviation less than kids who rarely or never touch tech at school. And that's across 80 countries. Bring it home to the US. Let's go to the US. We have our NAEP. That's our big data. Take any state, and here's a fun experiment you can try. Take any state NAEP data, compare that to when that state adopted one-to-one technology widely, and watch what happens. The NAEP data will plateau and then start to drop. Now, as Jean said, of course, this is all correlative. What we really want is causative. To get causation, what you need is academic research, and you need mechanisms, explanations for why we're seeing what we're seeing. Luckily, we have academic research stretching back to 1962 that shows the exact same story for 60 years. When tech enters education, learning goes down. In fact, one of the biggest ed psychologists right now, Dylan William out of the UK, recently said, ed tech is a revolution that's been coming for 60 years. And we're gonna have to wait another 60 because it ain't doing anything. Now that's research, but now we need mechanisms. Luckily, over the last about 2 decades, we've been doing a lot of work in what we call the science of learning. How do human beings learn? And we now have the clear understanding of why tech does not work for learning, and it is all biological. It's not that the tech isn't being used well enough, we haven't been trained enough, we need better programs. It's we have evolved biologically to learn from other human beings, not from screens. And screens circumvent that process. I won't go too deeply into the mechanisms, they can get boring, but just know they're there if you want to talk about them. So that leaves us with 2 options. Option 1, when you know something is wrong, do better. So we could just say, hey, mea culpa, get some of this tech out of schools, go back to what we know works, some analog methods, cool. Or 2, we could redefine our terms. We could redefine what it means to be an effective learner. I want to end with one quick story here. Think back to your childhood, to your schooling. I guarantee all of us at one point took a test on reading comprehension. And the way it looked is this. Here's a passage of about 750 words. Here are 10 to 12 questions about that passage. Most of them are inferential, not factual. They're asking you to go beyond what you just read to see what you understood. Cool. Last year, the SATs had a reading comprehension section. Here's what it looked like. Here is a single sentence of 75 words. Here is one question, fact-based, about that sentence. Next. Here is another sentence of 75 words. Here is one question about that sentence. Next. Last year, they redefined reading comprehension to mean 54 short sentences with one question about each. That is skimming. That's not reading. Why would we ever do that? Because what do kids do on computers? They skim. So rather than determining what do we want our children to do and gearing education towards that, we are redefining education to better suit the tool. That's not progress, that is surrender. So as we go through our discussion today, there's gonna be a lot of talk about smartphones and social media, rightly so. But I'm the voice here to remind you that even in schools, it doesn't matter what the size of the screen is, if it's a phone, if it's a laptop, if it's a desktop, and it doesn't matter who bought it. Is it school sanctioned? Does it have the word education stamped on it? It doesn't matter. All of these things are also gonna hurt learning, which in turn are gonna hurt our kids' cognitive development, right at the time when we need our kids to be sharper than we are. So thank you guys so much for today. I look forward to talking with y'all.
All right. So he said a lot quickly. He's like myself, we both speak fast. Dr. Horvath presents every year at the Learning and the Brain Institute in Santa Barbara, California, and he's on YouTube. But the big takeaways here, this notion of our brains were not designed for technology. And because we're taking it in so early and so much, it is slowing down our skill development, particularly the brains of young children, right? As I said earlier, one of the negatives about technology in usage over time is it slows down our attention span. And regardless of the content or the medium, it's accessing it early and often that is the problem, because our brains, it's changing our brains because our brains were not designed to actually use technology the way that we're actually using it, which is a big takeaway here. So Leah, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor.
My name is Dr. Jared Kuhn.
On the Padlet, if you could go to the Padlet, Leah, and grab the link for Dr. Horvath and the link for raising young children in the AI world, and just put them in the chat for me, that'd be really, really helpful. The videos there, I realized I didn't send them to you in the email, Leah. The next handout that you have, that you see here on the screen, has some takeaways and some risks from there were a series of talks from the Brookings Institute that I highly, highly recommend that you take a look at, where you have Isabel Howe, who's down in Palo Alto, California, Kathy Hurst-Pasek, who's here in Philadelphia at Temple, and Dr. Dana Suskind, who's up in Illinois. But they get together and they have this great talk where they talk about AI in early childhood. What I did it was one of my, this was back in May. I have a colleague that I work with. So you see the notes here and the notes here. I'm really transparent about them is I had AI take these notes, right? So I've been resisting using AI because I said, no, nothing will ever think for me. And I have a colleague that I work with in Marin who just loves AI. She's always saying, I had to talk with Chat GPT and I'm judging her in my head. She's a really good colleague of mine and we have real honest conversations. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to try to start using this thing. Let me see how I might use it. And it was back in May, it was into April actually, that I watched these videos and I had AI take notes for me. And I said, okay, not too bad, not too bad. So in full transparency, the notes for these 3 videos were actually taken by AI, which was me tiptoeing into how could I use this technology without feeling like it's thinking for me. But the handout here and this first video in their series, I highly recommend you watch all of them. This is where Dr. Suskind introduces her hope framework, which we're going to get into a little bit later, from her new book that just came out called Human Raised, which I am almost completely done with. And we're going to get into the hope framework a little bit later. Again, here with this handout that's a part of your handouts that presents the hope framework from her brand new book that came out last month that we're going to explore a little bit later. But I wanted you to have, there's a resource. And if you Google her, she's all over the internet. She's doing all types of interviews now because her book is so brand new. And we're going to really, in the next hour, take a look at the hope framework. And we're going to go into like maybe 3 breakout rooms for 3 minutes. The breakout rooms are going to be really short. And then that's the time when I'm going to ask you all to cut on your cameras during the breakout room so that nobody is forced to talk to a black screen. This issues of equity. And, you know, we want to be as equitable as possible when we're there. Right now, when I'm talking and your screens are off, that's fine because you all are actually over here. I'm looking here, and then what you see is over here. So I'm not even looking dead at you. But when we go into those breakout rooms, it's going to be a short period of time. And that's what I'm going to ask you to just cut your cameras on to have that brief conversation with the other 2 people in your breakout space. All right. So now we're going to move to the second part of this safe seat checklist, So this checklist that's a part of your handouts. So if you have it, this is when I actually need you to click on that link that Leah put in the chat to take 30 seconds and to find in those handouts, this safe seat checklist that gives us some considerations around development. It gives us some considerations around being research informed, protection oriented, and relationship based, right? So the first step for applying the Screen Aware framework is to think about choice, action, and activity in terms of the developmental needs of children. So you get 4 considerations there. Does it promote human interaction and connection? Does it support growth of executive function and self-regulation? Does it prioritize child-driven play, imagination, and exploration? Does it allow for experimentation and discovery? Does it preserve opportunities for rest and reflection? I need this in my life on a general basis. The second part about research, it says, does it integrate knowledge of potential risk and harms? Does it include benefits based on credible research methods and publications, right? And this is important around credible research methods. I was just having a conversation with a great colleague of mine who's a master coach, Gail Fisher in San Francisco, around AI use and Chat GPT. And I was explaining to her that what these things don't do is they don't go into the library and say, what are the books here? What are all the journals, the research journal article, the research journals that are credible? They simply scour the internet for the topic and just pull anything. So I could be lollipop at the corner and I write something and push it online. And if you type in that title or that subject, it can pull from what I put. And I'm just using my own thoughts. This is the danger of it, which is why you always have to go deeper around. It might pull from an actual research report that, you know, is published from a credible research journal that looked at studying children and technology usage, and it can track 5,000 children under the age, between the ages of 3 and 5. And it's using all the tenets of credible research, which is why that part is really, really important if we're pulling from AI. Then the next one, it says, aligns us with practice and policy recommendations. It avoids explicit and implicit perpetuation of common myths and misconceptions about children and screens. Considers what we covered around those C's of context, content, the child, connections, crowding out communication, and calm. Then when we think of choice, activity, and action around protective factors, does it ensure emotional and physical security? We're talking about the media that young children take in on screens here. Does it build on the individual's strengths and promote protective factors? Is it cultivating critical thinking, autonomy, and resilience? One of my favorites. Does it promote children's rights, right? Their right to privacy and right to flourish in digital and online environments, knowing that that one in and of itself has cultural implications depending on the culture and ethnicity in which that child is showing up. That we all feel different about that. And it's not about making sure you can check every one, but we're considering these pieces. And does it guard against digital online risks when we think of those C's? And then the final big tenet here in the Safe C framework is it relational, right? Does it avoid what we call screen traps and barriers? Does it sustain connection and trust and responsiveness, right? Let me give you an example of a screen trap. So my cousin, who is my goddaughter also, her mother's our parents are sisters, and then her mother had her. So she's my cousin and she's my godchild. So Skylar was sitting on the sofa. Her mother was cooking dinner. She could see her mother because there's sofa, you can see into the kitchen. I walk in the house and she's on the sofa scrolling TikTok. And Leah's really great about, you know, I put all the guards against them when her and Uriah are using social media and they only have kid access. And because it was Christmas time, it was after Thanksgiving, but it wasn't Christmas yet. And I came over the way a nice godfather does and says, you know, tell me what you all want for Christmas and it'll be here at Christmas. And then she wants to pick 100 things and I say, no, just 3. But she's on the tablet. She typed in Christmas because she wanted gifts to pop up. So she used the right word, but guess what popped up? There were 3 older men in Palm Springs who had on bikinis, Santa Claus hats, and no other clothes walking down the street because the hashtag was Christmas, right? So this is, we talk about screen traps and the barriers that even though her mother put child up there, the word Christmas did not delineate between positive and negative technology and media that was going to pop up. So inappropriate media still popped up because she typed in the word Christmas. And I kind of just said, Leah, look at this. And then she came and, you know, we took it from her and changed the thing and whatever and had a nice conversation about it. In that relational meaning, it should have engagement attached to it. And it should promote some understanding of what contextualized experiences when we think of the how, the why, and the what. So you all are going to need this. So if you don't have the opportunity to print it, call it up on your screen and keep it nearby because you're going to need it in the next 60 seconds. So you're going to watch some videos. You're going to watch maybe 3 videos, and then I'm going to talk about one. And when you watch these videos, you're not going to go into a breakout room. You're going to stay right where you are, and you're going to watch it. And then what you're going to do is after you watch it, you're going to peruse the checklist, and then you're going to type in the chat if it's high quality and what you think makes it high quality, and if it's low quality, and what you believe makes it low quality. So we're going to assess 3 videos that are focused on children, focused on screen usage, for what we call high quality and low quality, using this SAFE-C checklist. Because this checklist is what you can not just print and hand out to families, but talk about it with them. And I always say the best way to do it is to watch the media with the family and say, you know what, I just found this checklist that I've been reading over, and I wonder if, we might read it over together and see how it applies to the things that we're watching. Make it an experience, right? If you're a home visitor, make an experience. If you are a playgroup facilitator or museum educator or a teacher, apply it to your context in which you're working with children and families, and then deliver it. You may even want to do a 10-minute activity really close to what I'm about to do. All right. So if we think about this screen content and us auditing the screen content. So the first short video that you're going to watch is, many of you may be familiar with it. It's PBS Kids, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. Is an app and it's a TV show. It's based on Mr. Rogers. It's animated with the goal of teaching socio-emotional learning and skills, right? Each episode has a sing-song strategy to help children understand feelings across the feelings continuum, for early childhood learning. So let's take a look. So the first video that you're going to audit is Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. So we're going to watch the video and listen, and then you're going to be perusing that SAFE-C checklist for all those 4 buckets to see, does it meet high quality or low quality in terms of screen time, according to the SAFE-C framework. Here we go.
Ice treats for me and ice treats for you. Yummy, yummy treats in my tummy.
Hi, Tiger family. Does anyone want an ice cold treat?
Me, I do, please. Yay!
We'd love some treats. Could we have a cup of peach ice for Margaret, please?
1 peach ice. Coming right up. Do-do-do-do.
Oh, Margaret's getting peach. I can't because I'm allergic to peaches.
That's right, Daniel. Eating a cup of peach ice would make you itchy, but it won't do that to Margaret, so she can have it.
1 cup of peach ice. Enjoy, little Margaret. So, what would you like, little D?
I want a blueberry one, please. Blueberry's my favorite.
Yeah. There you go, little buddy.
Thank you. Look, it's blueberry. Hey, they have other kinds. I didn't see that banana star ice. I want that one too. And look, there's a grape spaceship one. That looks delicious. What's that one, Prince Tuesday?
Oh, well, that's a rainbow fruity ice. It's banana, orange, and strawberry all together.
Ooh, that one looks terrific. What flavor would you pick? Mom, can I have a rainbow ice too?
Daniel, you already have a blueberry ice, your favorite. Remember?
I know, but these look so yummy too.
Oh, Daniel, your ice is melting.
Oh no.
You're so busy looking at all the other treats, you're not enjoying the one you have. Enjoy the wow that's happening now.
Blueberry yummy. Enjoy the wow that's happening now. Wow.
Wow.
I love blueberries. So blueberry sweet. It's making my mouth feel cold.
I'm happy you like it. Thanks, Prince Tuesday.
Thank you.
Aw, I'm so glad you're enjoying your treats. Have a great day, everyone. See ya.
Bye, Prince Tuesday.
Here you go, Margaret. A little more peach ice for you.
Margaret, do you like your treat?
Yum, 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 yum.
I think she does. Wow.
Wow.
Wow!
There you go.
All done.
Watch Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood weekdays on your PBS Kids station or anytime.
All right. So let's consider those 4 broad tenets of the Safe Seed framework, and let's use the chat. High quality, low quality, and give us something that tells you it was high quality or low quality in the chat. Let's use the chat. High quality or low quality? Lilith said high quality, it was developmental centered. Thank you, Lilith. Mariah says high is slower than typical AI slop. right. High quality, highly engaged interaction, high quality as per development, teaches social cues using manners, teaching coping strategies and emotional regulation. That's right, Kaylin, all of those things. High quality, Smita said, per developmental, high quality relational components, as well as pause, acts for engagement. Yvonne says, I say low quality because no print language on the IS, relationship-based interactive, considered the 7 C's. Okay, let's see what happens here. So it is high quality. Here's why it's high quality. The pacing, it moves at the speed of natural conversation. There was a focus on SEL, and it provided those practical tools that children use in real life, right? It encourages what we think is central, co-viewing by the parent or caregiver, something that I love. The catchy songs, I don't know if you paid attention, but when they started singing, I even started bopping. And anybody that's ever come to one of the trauma trainings that I've facilitated, when we think of top down, bottom up, and intentional disengagement as the 3 strategies, it actually is a bottom up strategy that the singing and the sound of the music, it calms us, right? That's actually a trauma responsive brain-based strategy. So it is high quality. Awesome. Awesome. All right, the next one is we're going to look at Cocoa Melon. It's one of Leah Yancey's favorites. She has 2 daughters who I'm sure at some point probably wanted to consume Cocoa Melon. Here, it is on YouTube. Many of you may be familiar with it if you experience young children. It's really, really popular. It's a 3D animated, what we call nursery rhyme song, featuring JJ and his family. There are lots of bright colors and repetitive melodies. Let's listen. Stephanie said no. Oh, that's Stephanie from Alabama. Hey, Stephanie. Let's listen so we can determine if it's high or low based on the framework. And remember, with the framework, it's not about checking every single box, but seeing, does it meet many of the metrics that are listed here to guide us in our intentional use of what certain screen media for young children or not. Here we go.
Wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round. signals on the bus go blink, 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 all through the town. The horn on the bus goes beep, 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 beep. The horn on the bus goes beep, 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 all through the town. The motor on the bus goes vroom, 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 vroom. The motor on the bus goes vroom, 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 all through the town. The people on the bus go up and down, up and down, up and down. The people on the bus go up and down, all through the town. The babies on the bus go
Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah.
The babies on the bus go
Wah, wah, wah.
all through the town. The mommies on the bus go shh, 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 shh. The mommies on the bus go all through the town.
The daddies on the bus go
I love you, I love you, I love you,
The daddies on the bus go
I love you, all through the town. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on the bus go round and round, all through the town.
All right, let's do the same thing. Let's look at our safety checklist. Our broad categories of research, developmental, protective, and relational to determine if Coco Melon was high quality or low quality. Considering our checklist, was it high quality or low quality? Kaylin says low quality. Adrian says low quality, low quality. No one has their seatbelts on. Also, very limited social interaction. I agree with you, Jade. Low quality, lots of fast movement, sounds, bright colors, overstimulation. Overstimulating, the parent can choose instead just to play the song on their phone and dance and sing. Low quality, no interactive aspect, no critical thinking or connections, no verbal content, too much animation. Low quality because it's all over the place, Guadalupe says. Rapid shot changes, repetitive noise, bright colors, attention grabbing rather than engaging. This may be appropriate for a young infant, but older toddlers will not gain anything from this. Ooh, I would even worry about a young infant. Low quality, not really helping developmentally, would be different. The cartoons were. All right, let's see. It is low quality. We call this junk media. Here's why. Overstimulation, as many of you said, this group is intelligent. The rapid pacing, somebody named something similar to it, with scenes changing every 1 or 2 seconds, the scene was changing. And we know that that creates what we call a zombie-like state in young children that makes it difficult for them to focus, right? Even some toys. Years ago, when I was the director of a preschool in the Lower Haight in San Francisco, Lakeshore had just created these little like kitchen materials, like the blender and the oven and the microwave, and they all moved. So unknowingly, I purchased them all. And one day I happened to be in the toddler room and I realized there were 5 toddlers who were just sticking things in the microwave. And when they would close the door, they would press the button and they would just twirl around. And when I say my heart dropped, all 5 of the toddlers were doing like this. And I realized that wasn't what we wanted. It was supposed to be engagement facilitated by adults. And I remember Meredith saying, she's an occupation therapist now, Meredith saying, I can't stop them from doing it. So that night, because I knew if it disappeared, they might say, where is it? That night, I came in, I unscrewed the back and unhooked the wires, screwed it back. And then tomorrow, I could hear Meredith saying, I don't know why it's not working, because she didn't know either. I actually made it stop working intentionally so that they had to engage differently with it, but because it created that zombie-like state, no engagement. The other part here is passive consumption. It offers little servant return interaction, right? Not really. Here we have them staring at the screen rather than engaging. And the low educational depth is the other part. Yep. One more. Miss Rachel, she's all in social media now because the Christians are jumping on her around. She said she respects and appreciates and loves all people as a Christian, and they didn't like it because they told her, you're supposed to hate certain groups of people. You're supposed to hate the LGBTs. You're supposed to hate people with disabilities. You're supposed to hate single parents. They literally told her that. I was watching from the periphery, poor Miss Rachel, but she stood her ground. So Miss Rachel is a YouTube series and was created by a teacher who's a speech language expert, right? So her focus here is language development and early literacy through the use of nursery rhymes and play-based learning. They did, Stephanie, because all those mothers and fathers got back on the Beyonce's internet and they said, you will leave Miss Rachel alone in Jesus' name. I've been watching from the periphery, just having a good time. Well, not watching from the periphery, having a good time that way, but watching, saying, oh, they're defending Miss Rachel. What are they learning from that? Esther says, are we going to have a break at some point? Esther, we will have a 5-minute break right after we finish with Miss Rachel. Here we go. High quality, low quality. And most of these videos that I've showed you, I found the short ones. Most of the Daniel Tiger videos, they're actually 50 and 60 minutes long on YouTube. The Coco Melon videos, they're much longer. I had to search for one that was under 5 minutes long. So think about that also. If children are on YouTube and they press play and it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, when do they have time to reset? If no adult is engaging them in what they're consuming. All right, here we go.
Oh no! We need to help these animals get back to their homes. Can you help me? Can you help me? Thank you. Oh, it's an octopus. Does an octopus live in the ocean or at the farm? Yes, in the ocean. There he goes. Yay! Oh, a cow. Does a cow live in the ocean or at the farm? Yes, at the farm. Bye, cow. You live at the farm. Oh, a fish. Does the fish live in the ocean or at the farm? Yes, in the ocean. The fish swims in the ocean. Good job. Oh, I see a pig. I see a pig. Do you think the pig goes in the ocean? Or does the pig live at the farm? Yes, at the farm. Pigs like the farm. Good job. Whoa, whoa, it's a big whale. The biggest animal in the world. Do you think the whale goes in the ocean or at the farm? Yes, in the ocean. Good job. We're almost done sorting the animals. Oh, the last one is a horse. Does the horse go in the ocean or at the farm? You got it right, at the farm. You did it. I'm so proud of you. He sorted all the animals, and they're so happy to be back in their homes.
All right. High quality or low quality? All of it. Look at this group. They already know, Catherine. Interactive serve and return, teaching children sorting, pacing is developmentally appropriate. Love Miss Rachel Down. She encourages language development and knowledge about the world. She encourages interaction. Serve and return pauses for children's responses, so important. There you go. I agree. It's high quality. The three pieces here are this modeling of interaction, the slowed speech, because she is a trained speech therapist, the direct eye contact, and the intentionality, all centered around her training in terms of speech language development. Then the fourth one, we're not going to watch a video, but it's called Ryan's World. Ryan has over 40 million subscribers. He does a lot of unboxing. You see here, and we're not going to watch the video because this video was like 40 minutes long. It's him, his sisters, and his father. And then they unbox and say, you know, if what's in the box is good or bad. And then they throw a pie in their father's face. 40 million subscribers. Some of the videos are adults only. We see Ryan grow up over the years, indicative of, and there are lots and lots of children who are content creators. But this is what we can call low quality, because it's all about consumption. They're always like trying to get you to buy things, product displacement, and it has very little meaning for young children. So if we think about young children in their early childhood years, the only takeaway here is to ask the parent or caregiver to buy them something, right? But while Ryan's World is just one, there are many in young children. They show up on their feed because the trick is in the background, they want to appeal to when you put on those kind of child protections, it automatically alerts them because they say this is child friendly to show up in your feed. That's how it ends up showing up in your child's feed as part of their algorithm when you put the child protections on that you should put on, but this is why it shows up. All right. All right, so before we move to the next piece, which is we're going to look at Dr. Suskind's HOPE framework, let's take a 5-minute break. So I will start my timer now. All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to finish strong here. While you all were taking your 5-minute quick break, I added to the chat the link for Dr. Horvat's video, the link for the Brookings Institute video that I talked about, and the link to the register for the series. Or because the series already passed, if you just go to their YouTube page, all the videos should show up for you there. And great learning, great learning. Okay, let's jump in and move to Dr. Suskind's work. So I think it's important for all of us to kind of call out and acknowledge that parenting and caregiving today can be exhausting, and it is completely natural for parents and families and adults to lean on what Dr. Suskind calls frictionless technology so that they can get a break. You know, sometimes to cook or prepare a meal, sometimes, you know, to just take a break and read an email, to respond to somebody from work, or just to take their own kind of mental break. They give their children technology. Dr. Suskind introduces us to her framework, which some people have called, it's a constellation of kind of guiding lights rather than a rigid rule book. So in your handout, what you'll find is HOPE stands for human connection is irreplaceable, right? She talks about the brain being wired for interaction right? Things like shared laughter and eye contact that activate the neural circuits that cannot, no algorithm anywhere can replicate the eye-to-eye contact around neural connections in what we call mirror neurons. The O stands for owning our imperfections. I love this one, right? Children do not grow up and learn through perfect responsiveness, right? They go through what we call mismatches. Or for those of you who taken other trainings with me, they go through what we call being in sync and out of sync, right? Rupture, repair. That the friction and repair, this cycle of being imperfect, but coming back to it is the perfect part, or what makes it work. And then she talks about P being, how do we protect the early years, right? She says, because young children are still wiring the circuits that govern all of their relationships, they're testing the boundaries and limits, which is a normal occurrence that they should test them. And the adults in their lives should push back and say, I care for you, I'll keep you safe. Or families say, I love you, I'll protect you, right? Those are those effective boundaries that children should be pushing up against, right? Because their circuits are wiring to say, I'm safe and sound and grounded here, or uh-oh, this isn't a safe adult. So crucial to our growth, learning, and development. Then she talks about E, enhancing, not replacing. Enhancing, not replacing. That tech, no matter what it is, should not be a co-pilot. Well, it should not be the pilot. It should be a co-pilot, is what I want to say. Tech should not be the pilot. I need to understand the difference between a pilot and co-pilot. Tech should not be the pilot. It should be the co-pilot that deepens understanding, right? Not the lead or the pilot that replaces the core of human to human or adult to child or child to adult interaction, right? So this hope framework is central to us understanding a response to, not a reaction to, parents' use of frictionless technology, right? And that us moving away from judging and saying shame on you, which only encourages them to use it more because they're finding a place for it in their lives and in their child's or children's lives, because they're not always understanding what we understand is the importance of balance, the importance of language nutrition, socio-emotional learning, serve and return interactions. Families most of the time don't know what those things mean, right? So we go back to like this notion of what the hope framework is centered around, being human, and what being human requires of each of us is the big takeaway from Dr. Suskind's framework. So within our framework, this notion of hope, right? We want to talk about this notion of hope. So this is the time you're going to go into a 3-minute breakout room, just 3 minutes. So this is the time for those of you who are still with us, we're almost there, because we want you to practice this around skill development before we get to some closing slides. When we ask you to cut your cameras on, if you're in your car, if you're sitting in the cafeteria at work, if you're in a room with 10 other people, it's okay. We don't want people to be forced to talk to a black screen. We don't want you to be forced to talk to a black screen. Oh my God, Imelda, I just saw your name pop up. Hi, Imelda. I haven't seen Imelda since the pandemic. Thank you all who are cutting them on.
Hola. I heard you.
Thank you all who are cutting them on slowly. You only need it on for about 3 minutes and you can cut it back off. I just don't want folks, it's an issue of equity that if I show up in a room and my camera's on and I'm talking to a black screen and the black screen isn't responding. All right, I think we're ready, Leah. So what you're gonna do, Leah's gonna open up the breakout rooms and you're gonna go right in them. Is the first scenario says you're gonna do this more than once. It's called the perfect reader. So a new AI companion app is reading bedtime stories flawlessly. It never loses patience. It does all the character voices and never skips a page when tired. So I want you to have 3 minutes to discuss how a parent stumbling over words, getting distracted, or negotiating with their child over just one more book teaches emotional regulation and resilience, right? So we have the scenario, it's bedtime, but the family is using an AI companion to read. I want you to discuss that if the parent read it, who may stumble over some words, get distracted, or have to negotiate with the child who's always saying one more book, one more story, how the waiting can teach emotional regulation and resilience, right? So 3 minutes, and then somebody in your room, I'm gonna call some rooms out, will be the speaker for your room to tell us what you all quickly discuss.
Okay, everyone's back.
Awesome, thank you. So hopefully what you were able, we stayed in the main room with some people who were having problems getting in. And what came up for us was this notion of the O in Dr. Suskind's framework, the importance of helping families own imperfections, that stumbling over your words and getting distracted are all things that human beings do. And as a parent needing to negotiate with the child, Leah was in the main room and she talked about just being taxed at the end of the day and just finding it easier to give in. And when we don't give in, what our children start to build is resilience, that I can't always get what I want. And that this notion of emotional regulation, you remember this is about human experience. The more that the adult stays grounded and regulated, the child becomes regulated because we're going through a co-regulation experience. The more I get agitated, we send the child the other way. So this notion of it's never going to be perfect is where we want to land when we think about AI reading versus me reading. And the takeaway here is emotional regulation and resilience building as two key components to not giving in and the imperfections of the parent reading. Go ahead, Maria.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to say that I'm a home daycare provider.
Okay.
And I don't put TV at all. TV is not part of my curriculum, and my parents all know that. And I help them raise the child. But the most important is that the parents and I, we're on the same page about having them to have this, I call them substitute or electronic babysitter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the most important things is, like you were mentioning, is that the TV that is going on right now, even though this says PG, the content that is there, the vocabulary, the way that they implement it, there has to be a fight, there has to be somebody putting down somebody in order for them to have a resolution, and then, you know, the conflict and all that. It is really bad. And we as a parent, providers, and everybody needs to let this data, not data, these people who works in the TV and all these things, to say that we're not okay with this. Because, but the more we use it, the platform, the more we use it, the more demand, and they think that it's still okay to be making this context. So part of the solution, it has to be start with us. And then you don't have to, if I can say this, you don't have to come with an agreement with the child when they're so small. My kids didn't start watching TV until they were 3 years old. And then Elmo was one of the, back then, and Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, those are the things that will have a message, a positive message. And then, and right now, I feel like it keeps going worse and worse and worse. But we have to be part of the solution as providers, people who work with children. We have to start educating the parents and not keep saying, oh, you have to, do this and do that. No, we have to work together in order for us to be the solution. But having them the choice to, oh, you can watch TV for a little bit or that, it can be until they're big enough for them to make those decisions that we can watch, and so they can understand what they're seeing. I see even babies when I go, and the babies know how to slice a phone. I was like, well, what are we teaching them? And I go to Rich
Maria, I want to interrupt. Maria, they have
sorry.
No, it's okay. The parents have choices, and what we want to do is, what we found is when we say don't do it,
we need to educate them.
parents still do it. So the education has to be a part, like you talk about, the
Yes.
relationship building is what we want to walk away with. How do we be able,
Yes.
how are we able to talk about this with parents and families from an educational lens
Yes.
so that they
So
lean
I
in?
feel like this training is so wonderful, but also we need to include the parents. This training is really good for them to be educated and have to be strong. And then the child doesn't have to have a
Maria,
monitor and then
Denise,
for them to be
Maria,
happy.
Maria. Thank you,
Yes.
Maria.
So
Denise has her hand up. No, I just want to make sure everybody gets to speak. Go ahead, Denise.
Hi, I think, it's great to look at all of this and how parents can work effectively. I just want to address that I work with parents who have children, single parents, single moms who have children with disabilities, and they don't get a break. And I think that, being able to teach them of how to use this is appropriate. And I just know that sometimes they're not getting a break. And just the information on how to use this is great because it also, working together with the AI, with the reading, I think is really appropriate. And it also helps the parent model, if they read on their own, that they can make mistakes, and also that the child doesn't have to be perfect. But I did want to address the single parents with special needs kids, that sometimes it's being used as a tool and mostly appropriately. Thank you.
No, thank you, Denise. And that's a huge part of this session, that we know families are using it for a variety of reasons. We have research that confirms that. And what we need to move away from is telling parents no, because then they do it in an uninformed way. We need them to understand that when they're using it, to use it with more intentionality, and from this place of, okay, I know that I'm drained, the hour before I go to bed. Maybe that's when I'm going to let my children watch something while we sit on the sofa together, right? That we're helping them to be more intentional about the usage, because the truth is they're all using it anyway. I just put a link in the chat called Let Grow, from an author who created an agency regarding screen use. And I didn't add all his stuff to it because it would have just made it longer. But this is a great website that gives parents and families an alternative to screen use, and some ideas around how to move forward with young children and screens. So scenario B looks at the smart soother. And Kathy Hurst-Patrick talks about this. If you listen to that Brookings webinar, she talks about AI being inside of the toys that children have. So here we have a smart crib, meaning the crib uses algorithms to detect when the infant cries, and the crib responds with an exact motion or white noise needed to put them back to sleep without a parent entering the room. These cribs exist, and they sold in the millions, not the hundreds, but the millions. So what I want you to quickly discuss in your breakout room is why the messy physical soothing of a tired caregiver builds the foundations of secure attachment. Compared to me moving to my crib and then the crib responds to it, what happens differently when my Abuelita, my tia, my nan, my mother, my father, my older brother or sister, when they walk in, compared to no other person walks in, but the crib responds and plays white noise music or shakes the crib a little bit to put me back to sleep. All right. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms now. You all will just get pushed right into it. It's only going to be 3 minutes, and you'll see the countdown clock, and you'll come back. I know you all were in mid-sentence and it brought you all back, but I'm wanting to pay attention to the time. So for the smart soother, well, I stayed in the main room, and Leah actually shared her own personal experience being the mother of 2 and how she used the smart crib with one but not the other. So I had some real insight there, right? She said, I was like, wait, what? So, Leah talked about the benefits for the second child and, their sleeping habits and all that the crib would do in terms of alerting you, only going off for a little bit of time and kind of stopping so that the human had to come in and, interact. It wouldn't just go and go and go. So I just learned some things about this notion of the crib. But of course, here what we want is Dr. Suskind's H, which is about human connection and this notion of protecting the early years in terms of the more interaction and connections is what builds that kind of rupture repair around secure attachment. And it looks like Leah was saying her experience was it would only do it for a little while, and then it would wait for one of us to come, it would stop. And then when she cried again, we would have to come and give that human connection. So the third one, I'm not going to send you into the room, is the story prompt generator, where a parent is exhausted at the end of the day and uses ChatGPT to generate a list of silly customized prompts. And this is happening a lot, right? So here we would think about how can tech lighten the cognitive load for parents while keeping a human connection at the center. Think about her E, enhance but don't replace, right? Enhance but don't replace. I wish we had more time, but it was only 2 hours. Human Raised, fantastic book. You can find Dr. Suskind online if you're not a reader. She has a bunch of great short webinars, talks that she's done in terms of presentations. She's been interviewed on the news a bunch. If you go to YouTube and type in her name and do relevance or date, all her latest things about being human raised will pop up. So let's talk about strategies for engaging families as we come to our last 6 minutes together. Let me just go ahead and put it all down there. When we all hear this, but we oftentimes don't put it in practice the right way about meeting them where they are, right? This is about when we think of screen usage and being screen smart, when we say meet families and parents and caregivers where they are, it's about acknowledging that screens are being used, sometimes as a survival tool, and what we don't want to do is shame them or blame them, right? I gave you a real life example of me walking into my cousin's house. She was 10 feet away from her daughter, and she turned around and was like, I had the lock on it, because what she heard was me blaming her. And that wasn't my intent at all. It was, how is this happening? Because I know you use childproof. And what we explored was when she typed in the word Christmas, because when I said, Skylar, what is this? She looked at me like, I don't know. Like, I'm looking for toys and gifts to get for Christmas, that we realized it was the search. So this is about acknowledging where people are and figuring out ways that we can still use it without shaming and blaming children. And for some of us, like Maria, who's a family childcare provider, it's about modeling. For those of us who may be working with families on the periphery, we do trainings, we offer play groups, socializations, where they may not be with us in a formal kind of contained classroom or setting. We work with them around the periphery. Again, not shaming and blaming families, but finding ways that children begin to use screens in more what useful ways based on the context, right? Based on the context. And then as much as possible, connecting things to home, right? Building on what children are doing with their parents and families, and then really stressing as much as possible co-viewing, because that's co-regulation and is attachment. So when we think of, I'm doing it with them, not here, you do this, this is what we're after, that parents and families finding time. We're talking about 2 or 3 minutes. We're not talking about 30 minutes. We're talking about 2 or 3 minutes of doing it with them. Maybe I'll walk away and come back and check in, right? Then we're thinking about not making the technology available from sun up to sundown, right? Asking parents to think about when their child wakes up, do they hand them a phone or a tablet? Or are they saying that it died? And are they looking to charge it up or use yours from the time they wake up until the time they get back in the car after school, until the time they fall asleep? That's what we're wanting parents to interrogate. And we have this great SACE checklist to guide them along the way. So again, we look forward to seeing you September 16th for attachment, October 7th for neurodivergence, and November 4th for child development activities. In closing, we would like to invite you all to share your closing thought with us in the chat. Write down one screen-aware change you're willing to implement in your professional practice next week. in the chat. Thank you all. One screen aware change you're willing to implement in your professional practice next week. Next week. Thank you all. Thank you for your time and attention. And you will get an evaluation for the session in email. Please fill it out. They need it for feedback, and it helps because they compensate me for this. So if you don't fill out the evaluation, they don't want to pay me. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Catherine's probably cracking up. But thank you all. I wish we had more time. These are designed to be 2 hours, short period of time. So we're front loading, but there's going to be more information that Leah will be sharing post-training to keep the learning going around screen time. And as things come in for Leah, Catherine, and I, Leah usually compiles them and says, here's some other information for those who signed up for this training. So the learning is always ongoing and continuous. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay well. And I look forward to seeing you all in September.
Thank you,
Okay.
Shawn, so much for this valuable presentation, the frameworks, and engaging us all in these activities. Do check out our materials folder. There's a lot of great information. Check out the full screen aware kit. It comes with tips and strategies for in-home, classroom, and professionals. So there's a lot of one-pagers there. There's also, again, the HOPE framework and all the material shared today. So we hope to see you next time. Thank you all again, and have a nice day.